Good day everyone! So, in this video we are going to talk about one of the hardest things in programming, which is how to figure out what you're actually going to build. So let's get into it. Now, I want to give you a bit of context because it's important. When I was at my first startup job, it was my first job, we had a work process that was extremely kind of ad hoc, and we were innovative and we were trendy and we were super agile, or at least that's what they called themselves. I got a little bit of context on this topic, which I will share with you in just a moment. But that was the general vibe of things. And I thought that this was the way to work, or rather that your product manager came in, told you, hey, Frederick, this is what I need you to build. You looked at something that they threw together to kind of illustrate what they wanted, and then you started building. And you basically, when you were done, you showed your work, and then they gave feedback. And for the most part, you had to do the thing over and over and over a few times until you got it right. And that was generally the way it worked. And then I started working at a really large company. And the processes there were very different. There was a lot of preparation going into every single feature. We spent a lot of time in meetings, and we talked a lot about things up front. And we had a process. We were fairly agile, as they like to call it, but it was more. There was more conversations going on. There was more discussions about, all right, how things were going to work, how we were going to structure the project, and how to structure the work. And it was kind of necessary because we were more people at the time. When I first started out, it was just me and one other guy, basically, who was doing the work. But when we were 8 people, we had more conversation, at least at the big company. And what I found was that the amount of times I needed to redo my own work stood in proportion or in relation to the amount of prep work I did or that had been done. And just let me walk you through this, because although I have worked with a lot of people who really despise meetings and so forth, I found that there's actually a big problem with having the approach of just getting to work. And the problem is that when you need to work as a team, not just the developers, but the actual business, like the business people and the stakeholders, if there's ambiguity or misunderstandings in what you're actually going to ship, if the project manager is thinking one thing and the developers are then thinking another thing, the total time it will take to get the thing that you want to build right is actually going to be much longer than the time it took to have an extra discussion or a talk or just a bit of clarity in the specification. Because the thing is that at my current company, I've been pushing this for a little while now, and we're moving towards it. It's actually, I'm very happy to say that when I first started, we had a lot of issues. I was suffering quite a bit because this ad hoc way of working wasn't really working out for my team. We had problems with communications. I was building one thing, and then my colleague was building another thing, and we did double work, and we didn't synchronize at all. We didn't have a joint understanding of what we were actually building. We had different ideas about exactly how it was going to work. And our project manager had that issue as well. To her, it was very clear. To us, it was not so clear. There was all these questions that kind of came around. And these problems all but vanished in our last sprint. This is what we're working on right now. And it did so because we decided to commit to over-communication. And basically what we did was the thing that I was accustomed to doing at my previous job. And I'm not saying that this is a large company type of thing, because you can have really bad meeting strategies and so forth. But and I'm not trying to advocate not being agile and not just getting stuff done. What I'm trying to advocate is to spend more time making sure that everybody who is sitting down and starting to contribute to the code and to the project and what's going to be shipped actually know what they're going to build. That is something that is more important than getting started immediately, because if you just jump in and you start working without making sure that everybody is on the same page, you will actually compromise the project. You will start investing time, and by the end of it, maybe you're not even getting exactly what it is that you want. And by then it's too late to change it, and you kind of just have to live with it or tweak it a little bit. This is how tech debt comes around, guys. This is how it gets there, because you don't have clarity in what it is that you're building. Trust me, because the code is easy. The code is easy. For the juniors out there, trust me, it is going to get to a point where you know how to write the software. You have no problems producing the software. It might take time, and different stories and different workloads will take different amounts of time. But in general, figuring out how to solve the problem is fairly easy. The problems usually come from these tiny details in the implementation, the specifics about how every single thing is going to work. And that's why you need that meeting. That's why you need to make damn sure that when you start working, everybody's on the same page. My favorite example of the most important prep meeting you can have is when you are introducing a new model. If you are doing, let's say that you're building some new feature, right? And that new feature requires you to add a new model. Let's say that you have a new product type or a new some type of domain object that is going to be added to the stack. That usually means that all the other things, like that model, everybody on the project needs to be aware of how that model looks, because that model is where the data is, and the data is the source of truth. The data needs to be in the correct shape and have the correct information for all of the other features around it, for all the services or all the other functionality to work. Everything else comes, it all flows from the data model. That means that if you say that you're tasked with working on a service or a feature, and your colleague is tasked with making the model, if you start working with a model in your head, and then you get the model when it finally is finished, and it doesn't map over to the way that you thought about the problem, you have a problem. That's why it's very important that you know exactly what the data model is going to be when you start working. And that's why, in order for you to work effectively as a software engineering team, you need to take the time to make sure that you all understand what it is that you're going to build. Because trust me, nobody's doubting that you're skilled. I know that you're skilled. Your boss knows that you're skilled. You have the job because you can write software. That's the easy part. Now you just have to make sure that you're building the right thing. Have a great day.